In class today. I'm just going to go through it again real quick. Macromolecules are large organic molecules that are essential for life. We call them macromolecules, macro meaning big, and they are essential for all living things. Every living thing needs them. So the four macromolecules here, we got our carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Your carbohydrates are going to be your pastas, your breads, your corn, potato, all of the starches as well. And those are going to be for immediate energy. The monomer is a monosaccharide, mono meaning one, single, and then saccharide meaning sugar. An example of this is glucose. It has the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Lipids are the next one. Lipids are your fats and your oils and your waxes, your butter, your olive oil, your shortening, all the things that are greasy. Examples of this, we have our olive oil, butter, anything that's got fat in it, your waxes, candle wax, things like that. The monomer is a glycerol with 3 fatty acids, and it's got the elements C, H, and O as well. The difference between these two is just structurally they look different, even though they have the same elements. The proteins, you're going to be your meats, your beans, your nuts, so any beef, meat products, fish, any of those things. The monomer is the amino acid. That's what we're talking about right now. We're talking about protein synthesis. The building up of proteins is done by putting a bunch of amino acids together. And this one's going to be CHO, and then there's the N for nitrogen. I always remember the N goes with protein because there's an N in protein. And then there's nucleic acids. That's your DNA and your RNA. All living things have it. All the things that you eat have nucleic acids in them. The monomer is the nucleotide, right? We made our DNA molecules. It had a sugar, a phosphate, and then a base. It's one of those 4 letters, A, T, C, or G. They also have C, H, O, and N, but there's also the P. P is phosphorus. P goes with the phosphate in the nucleotide. The macromolecule that's a fast source of energy is your carbohydrate. That's why you pasta load the night before a big game. It's going to give you immediate energy. Insulation is keeping things either cold or warm. That's going to be your lipids. That's why the whales and the seals that are down in the Arctic have thick layers of blubber. Blubber is insulation. It's going to keep them warm. Immune system is going to be your proteins. That's going to help you fight off infections. Involved in the genetic makeup, that's your nucleic acids, your DNA, and your RNA. Long-term energy storage is your lipids. If you're going a long time without eating, your body will turn to the lipids first for energy. If it runs out of lipids, then it'll go to the muscles, right, the protein, and then eventually it'll digest your organs. Act as enzymes. Those are proteins. Proteins are going to speed up chemical reactions. Muscle development, also proteins. That's what you consume protein powder before you go to the gym. And a mutation in the DNA would be nucleic acids. DNA is the genetic material that tells all cells what to do and makes proteins. That's what we're doing right now, right? We're going from the DNA to the mRNA to the protein. If for that we didn't have the DNA, we would not be able to go to the mRNA and we would not be able to make a protein. The monomer, we said before, is the nucleotide, the sugar, the phosphate, and the base. The bases are what changed. It's the A, T, C, or G. DNA is located in the nucleus, doesn't leave, can't leave, it's too big. DNA comes from your male and female parent, so you need 50% of it from mom, 50% of it from dad. And then the DNA here is going to coil up into these chromosomes so that it can fit in the nucleus. It's very, very long. It needs to be coiled up nice and tight to fit in the nucleus. Here we have the phosphate, we've got the sugar, and we've got our nitrogenous base. This is the A, T, C, or G. Remember, A always goes with T, C always goes with G. When we look here, we've got our pairings, A to T, T to A, C to G, G to C. DNA makes a copy of itself when it's growing. The organism is growing, needs to make more cells, or if there are damaged cells. Cut yourself, you need to heal. It's going to make copies of the DNA and make new cells. And the DNA needs the RNA because it can't leave the nucleus. If we could go right from the DNA to the ribosome, we wouldn't need the mRNA, but DNA can't leave. It's too big of a molecule, too important of a molecule. That's why we need the mRNA to come in. DNA making a copy of itself is DNA replication. The RNA copying the DNA message is our transcription. If we transcribe something, we're writing it. And then we're making the protein, right? We're bringing in the amino acids. That's translation. We're taking that information and translating it into something we can understand. Here's our chart. Okay, deoxyribose sugar is the D in DNA, so that's DNA. Contains uracil instead of thymine. That's our RNA. If you see U, it's RNA. Can leave the nucleus, also RNA. DNA cannot. contains the adenine, guanine, and cytosine. That's both. Okay, the other ones, the thymine and the uracil, that would be for either DNA or RNA, but it's not mentioned here. Made of nucleotides, also RNA and DNA. They're both nucleotides. Made through transcription, that's going to be your RNA. Single strand, also RNA. That's why it's able to leave the nucleus. And then is made through replication, that's your DNA. RNA never replicates. So DNA, the role in making protein, it contains the message needed for the mRNA. The mRNA is going to transcribe the message from DNA. So it's going to take the message from the DNA, leave the nucleus and go to the ribosome. The tRNA, you don't need to worry about. We're not focusing on the tRNA. It's the one that's shaped like a T. It's going to bring in those amino acids. So it's going to match up to each codon, bring the amino acids, and they're going to bond together to make that protein. And then the ribosome is where the protein synthesis is going to happen. The amino acids are brought in, bonded together, makes the protein. All right, last part. On your study guide, you had more in this chart, right? You had the DNA, complementary DNA strand. You can delete that. You don't need to worry about that. You also have a tRNA strand. You don't need that. We're just going to go from the DNA to the mRNA to the amino acid. So our A goes to U, A goes to U, C goes to G. When we look at our codon wheel, it's U, U, G. That's how we got leucine. Here we have T, T goes to A, G goes to C, A goes to U. So A, C, and then U is going to be threonine. And then the last one, G goes to C, T goes to A goes to U. So CAU, CAU, histidine. Okay, now I'm going to go through the Kahoot. Oh, yeah. I did that one wrong. Sorry, messenger RNA.